Next, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite up our best man, Zach Lidner.
Okay, so I cry at weddings a lot, and even if I'm like watching TV and I'm flipping the channels and there's a wedding, I cry. So at the end of this, I'm gonna be in a lot of tears, and I'm probably louder. How's that? Perfect. Okay. I'm gonna get real close to this mic. Okay, so I'm gonna be in tears. So just FYI. Originally, I had a really great opening line for this speech, but I talked with Roger and I told him that it was just going to be really amazing. And unfortunately, he said that I just can't say anything explicit or anything that really embarrasses him. So that opening line has unfortunately been cut. Yeah, boo is right. Boo. So Roger also said that I just really couldn't say anything to embarrass him at all in any way. It's going to be really difficult for me since, honestly, some of the funniest moments that I've ever experienced in my life have been with Roger when he's completely embarrassed himself. So one of the things that I'm going to talk about today are the ways that in which Roger has really been there for me over the course of our friendship. And fortunately for me, he's been there for me in some really weird ways. And he didn't say that I couldn't talk about those stories, so I'm going to just get into it. So I unfortunately have been on a lot of interviews lately, and during these interviews, they constantly ask me about what my greatest strength is. And I am constantly lying about like how amazing of a person I am, and I give everything 100%, and they just know I'm completely lying, and I know I'm completely lying, and we just move on because that's how you do these things. But my greatest strength is really my ability, my research skills, and more specifically, I'm really talented at using WebMD to self-diagnose. And typically I learn that my death is imminent. And in times like this, I call Roger, and I've called Roger probably between 30 and 50 times over the course of our friendship. And he's had to talk me off of this WebMD-induced cliff. And I call Roger, and he's an amazing doctor, and he talks in a very soothing voice to me, and he tells me that everything's going to be okay, and I believe him. And I move off of this cliff onto a smaller cliff, and on that cliff, I go to online health forums, and where I interact with other people just like me, non-health professionals, where we have very important, serious discussions about health-related topics. And I have to actually call Roger again, and this cycle usually continues a few times for about a week or two. Until I feel safe. And Roger, I'd really like to thank you for helping me out in these times. Also, that story was extremely censored, so I hope that's okay. Roger, was that enough censorship for you? Okay. Oh, but yeah, you know where these stories go, and that was the G version. Okay, so let me actually censor another story for you. Let me figure out what that story is because my memory is fading right now. So I talked with you about my greatest strengths. Now, let me actually talk to you about my greatest weakness. My greatest weakness in reality is actually my ability to approach women in public. I'm really, really bad at it. I just can't do it in any way. And Roger, I don't know if anybody knows this, but Roger read this book about how to approach women in public. And this turned him into an expert. And since I'm not really allowed to, again, tell embarrassing stories about Roger, I'm going to talk to him about, how he's helped me as it relates to women. So Roger and I used to go out a lot to the bars, and this one time we went to this bar, and I saw this woman, and she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. And I looked at her and I said, Roger, look at the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. And without just like blinking or whatever, Roger just walks up to this woman. And he knows that I want to talk with her. And he just grabs her hand, and she gives him the weirdest look because it's totally weird to just grab some random woman's hand at a bar. And he takes her hand and he says, I'm going to read your palm, which is, again, is really weird. But in this book, it said to do that. So Roger just did it. And Roger takes her palm, and she's really scared. And he's like, this is your lifeline. And she's like, okay, stop. And then he says, this is your love line. And she's like, okay, that's like a little more interesting, but this is still weird. And then he says to her that your next boyfriend is probably nearby, which is also very weird. And Roger turns to me and he calls me over and he introduces me to this beautiful woman. And well, she became the love of my life for 2 months. But it was an amazing 2 months, so thank you. So Roger, over the years, tried to teach me these skills, and he was never successful. And to be honest, Roger himself was never successful either. The only time I ever learned about his success with a woman was with a woman. Is when he told me a story, and it's going to be it's kind of like a recap of a story that was described earlier, but my version is a little bit different. The only success that I ever know Roger ever had with a woman was when he abused his position of power to coerce a student into going out with him. Yeah. So that leads me to Natasha. Natasha's not getting away with it either. Natasha, like Roger, is one of those people that just will really, really always be there for you, and I love you for that. But to be honest, there's something that Natasha did to me a while back, and I figured that since I have the mic, I might as well, this makes sense, just to kind of like talk with you about what happened. And hold on, I'm thirsty. So, Natasha, many years ago, she introduced me to a drug. I know it doesn't sound like Natasha, but it's true. She introduced me to this drug called Chevra. Did I pronounce it right? Yeah. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's like this Indian Chex Mix, but I think they mix actual drugs in it, and then you eat it, and then you just can't stop for years. So I've been hooked, and I've been asking Natasha over the years, like, what's the recipe? Can you please tell me, because I have no idea what is happening in that mix, and she refuses. And I've asked her for like the phone number or contact information of the person who makes this, and she just refuses to give it to me. So I figured that since I'm like in this room, and there's a lot of Desi people here, I'm pretty certain that that person who makes that is in this room. And if you could please come find me afterwards, like I would really appreciate it, because I'm not sure if I'm ever gonna get it now that Natasha's leaving. So please approach me afterwards. So this is the part of my speech where I cry. Maybe not, actually. I'm feeling pretty good. Roger, you're so lucky to have a woman like Natasha, who keeps the Chevra supply flowing. She's beautiful, caring, smart, one of the most amazing people that I've ever met. And I'm so happy to have both of you in my life, and I'm so happy that you found each other. So I'd like to raise a glass to Natasha and Roger.